Top 5 British fighters in the UFC of all time. One thing I want to clear up is I'm not going to be including people from like the 90s UFC. I'm only going to be including people from like the 2010 to 2023 era of UFC. I've already done a video who I think the best fighter from every country is. If you want me to do another video like this, but let's say like top 5 Brazilian fighters or top 5 USA fighters, I can do that. But top 5 British fighters of all time. Starting off with the guy who's main eventing this Saturday, Tom Aspinall. He's extremely talented for his weight class. He's probably one of the most talented people I've ever seen at heavyweight. Probably got the fastest hands in heavyweight history, to be honest with you. I really do think he's a future champion. I think 2, 3, 4 fights time he will 100% be heavyweight champ. He's undefeated in the UFC. I'm not going to count the injury loss to Curtis Blades because that wasn't a loss, that was an injury. So he's undefeated in the UFC. And he's beaten some top contenders. Sergey Spivak, Alexander Volkov, a former champion Andrei Arlovsky. And he's going to be fighting Marcin Tybura this weekend, who's a ranked opponent. So very, very talented. Not much British fighters have ever even beaten that many top contenders, especially not a former champion. A lot of them aren't even undefeated. And I just think Tom Aspinall is one of the most talented for his weight class. You know, there's other fighters in Britain, you know, there's Lerone Murphy, Nathaniel Wood, Jai Herbert, but none of them look so far like they're going to be future champions. Tom Aspinall looks like he's going to be future champion. People are already calling him champ, and the best opponent he's beaten is Volkov. So I'm going to have to go Tom Aspinall number 5 as the 5th best British fighter. And obviously, his ranking will increase if he gets a couple more wins together. Maybe if he beats Almeida or Blades or Garn. But I believe in two fights time he'll be fighting for a belt, and I think he'll have to take that number 4 spot. Well, who is number 4? Number 4, I've given it to Arnold Allen. He's only got one loss in the UFC, and it was to Max Holloway, who's one of the best featherweights of all time. I'd put Max Holloway in my top 3 best heavyweights. I put Max Holloway in my top 3 best featherweights, so there's no shame in losing to Holloway. He's pretty young, he's Arnold Allen. He's still got a really long career, so for all we know, he could still become champion one day. He's a top 5 ranked heavyweight, and he's got a really good resume. He's got Dan Hooker on there, first round finish. He finished Calvin Kattar. He's beaten Sodiq Yusuff. Arnold Allen, very solid fighter. The only reason I'm putting him at number 4 is, again, he's fought the number 1 contender in Max Holloway. Tom Aspinall hasn't really fought the number 1 contender. Both top 5 ranked. Both, got a decent resume. So they're very close together, but because Holloway's fought a step up in competition, and he did lose the fight. He did lose to step up in competition, but at least he's been there. I'm going to put Arnold Allen number 4. Do I think he's going to be champion one day? Maybe. I mean, if he's lost to Holloway the first time, I don't see how he's just going to magically beat Holloway. I don't think he's going to magically beat Holloway. I don't think he's ever going to beat Volkanovski. I think Topuria could beat him. I think he could beat people like Josh Emmett. I think he can potentially beat Yair Rodriguez, but that'll be a tough fight. I think he beats, what's his name? Brian Ortega. He's going to have to change his game plan up a bit. So far from what we've seen, he's definitely the 4th, in my opinion, the 4th best British fighter we've seen. Has champion material. Like I said, only ever lost to Max Holloway, which was a decision as well. It wasn't even like Holloway battered him for 5 rounds. It was a decision loss to Holloway. He's very bright as Arnold Allen, and I truly believe he has the tools to become champion one day. Not as much as I do with Aspinall, but he's at least fought the tougher competition than Aspinall so far. Moving on to number 3. Now, this one's going to be quite controversial because of the current state of his career, but I'm going to go with Darren Till. I think Darren Till's the 5th best English fighter specifically. First of all, he's fought for a belt. Aspinall's never fought for a belt. Arnold Allen's never fought for a belt. Darren Till has fought for a belt against Tyron Woodley. Yes, he got finished in the first round, and I don't even think he landed a single significant strike. But at least he's fought for a belt before. He's managed to build himself up to fight for a belt. He was once a huge UK prospect. He was once the biggest UK prospect in the world. People genuinely thought he was going to go on to do great things in this sport. Unfortunately, he didn't. He's got a decent resume as well. He's beaten Kelvin Gastelum. He's beaten Wonderboy. He's beaten Donald Cerrone. He got a split decision loss to Robert Whittaker. Only problem is he went on a downfall. If Darren Till didn't go on a downfall, he probably won't be in this position. But yeah, because he's fought for a belt, unlike Arnold Allen and Aspinall, and that he's fought top contenders, I'm gonna have to put Darren Till at I'm gonna have to put him at 3. He's only like 30 years old as well. He's still got a long career left. Just depends how he chooses to spend it. If he keeps going on this losing streak, he's not even in the UFC anymore. He's not even in the UFC, but Darren Till, I'm going to have to give him... I'll give him number 3 because he has fought for a belt and he has, like I said, had a decent resume against Gastelum, Wonderboy Cerrone, had a close fight with Whittaker, just like Arnold Allen had a close fight with Holloway. But he did go on a downfall, so he can't be anything above number 3. And he's never actually been the champion like someone we know. Coming in at number 2, I'm going to go Micheal Bisping. First of all, he's been champion before. He was actually the first British champion. So, he was the first British champion in the world. He's been champion. He's beaten some great people like Dan Henderson. He also got brutally knocked out by. He's beaten Anderson Silva. He's beaten Luke Rockhold. Finished Rockhold as well. And he's got a title defence. That's a pretty solid resume. We're talking about British fighters we know. Tom Aspinall, he's beaten Sergey Spivak. Bisping's been champion before. It's not easy to become champion in this sport. There's very 2% of all UFC fighters have probably been champion. Micheal Bisping, he's actually been a champion, and he actually got a defence as well. So it's not like it was a fluke. He did get a defence, and it was against Dan Henderson. And like I said, he's beaten Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva's in top five best of all time, and he's beaten Anderson Silva. There's only ever been 2 British champions, so I think we know he's number 1, but because he's been a British champion and he's got such a good resume and he's got a title defence, I'll put him in at number 2. But the only thing that's stopping him from being number 1, first of all, he has lost like 10 times in the UFC. I think his record's like 30-10 or something. He has been brutally knocked out multiple times, including his last fight of his career. He did only get 1 defence, and the person let's say he's impressive, but it's not as impressive as Leon Edwards. Oh, what's happened there? It's not as impressive as Leon Edwards. First of all, Leon Edwards is champion just like Bisping was, and he also has 1 defence, but Edwards is counting, so for all we know, he could go on like a 7 defence streak. He's 2-1 against Kamaru Usman, who's arguably one of the welterweight goats, besides GSP. So he's 2-1 against Usman. He hasn't lost since 2015. He's only ever lost, I think, 3 times his entire career. And his last one was against Kamaru Usman in 2015, who he's already beaten twice. And he's got a great resume, way better than Bisping's. He's beaten Kamaru Usman twice. He's beaten Nate Diaz, Donald Cerrone, Brian Barberena, Rafael Dos Anjos, Vicente Luque, and he's still collecting his resume. Resume is more impressive than any other British fighter. Only 1 out of 2 of the British champions. He's counting with defences. Hasn't lost since 2015. I think he's like 19-3. Very solid record. Leon Edwards is definitely the best British champion. He's in the top 10 pound for pound as well. Yeah, Leon Edwards definitely by far the best British fighter. That could be overtaken if Tom Aspinall goes on like a massive winning streak or something like that. But for right now, 100% Leon Edwards. It's hard to argue with him. Bisping's definitely not better because Bisping's resume doesn't even come close. Bisping retired on 1 defence. Leon Edwards has still got a career ahead of him. Bisping lost on multiple occasions. Leon Edwards has lost 3 times. His last loss was in 2015. It's hard to argue that Leon Edwards isn't the best British fighter, but yeah, that's what I'm going to put for my top 5 list. If you want me to do this about a different country like Brazil or USA or Mexico, I'll do it about that. But if we're talking about British, Leon Edwards is the best.